The number 3 top story is question around developer privacy preservation. This is from Optimism from Devs Territory, February 22nd. 15 comments, 1,789 sats. Keyan, how serious is this?
I don't know if it's serious, but I mean, he's not joking.
It's number 3. Stackers care about this.
It is number 3. Well, it's a really good question. Most people don't realize when they're interacting with any person's servers how much data they can grab on them, and when you're doing things like contributing to Bitcoin, you might be your real identity getting leaked and associated with those contributions has consequences, as we've seen in the CSW lawsuits. So Optimism describes a few leaks in their privacy, because they're usually pretty good about it, where their VPN was reconfigured and it wasn't on, and they made some Git contributions, and the people who, GitHub and the people who run that repo now know where they live, and that information could be gathered and shared. So they're asking if anyone is aware of a Tor-only contribution system or a Git host, and if not, they want to build one. And yeah, that's pretty much what the question's about, is developer privacy. There's also other, I've had concerns about, like, a lot of Stacker.News' development, and a lot of our conversations are on GitHub. And if GitHub goes away, or they decide one day they have a policy against Bitcoin projects, there goes a lot of our collective knowledge has disappeared. And so I've looked into in the past backups and stuff, running mirrors, but nothing has really appeared that's very easy to use.
So you don't run a backup for your GitHub?
No, I mean, we have backups of the code, but I'm talking about all the metadata, the things that make GitHub what it is. It gives them their moat, that metadata moat, all of our issues, our discussions, all the PR comments, things that really set a cultural tone for the development of the project. Those would all disappear if Google kicked us off.
It kind of makes me think about, whenever I see stuff like this, obviously there's always going to be people after your data and always want to sell it, because it's good money. But the second thing is, what's the I guess the crux of the problem is that it's getting served to who knows who, right? We don't know where that data is going, whether it's governments, North Korea, ABC agencies. That's the biggest problem to it all, right? Is that data is getting shared with others that we don't even know where it's going.
Well,
right?
the worst thing about it is, in many cases, this data is just for sale, and that was put on display for me in the most obvious way around the Trump assassination. There was a conservative organization that determined the location of the shooter's phone for years, where he was going, and they associated device ID with his home and his work. And then they're like, okay, where is this device ID gone in the last few years? And they're like, oh, it went to Washington, D.C. It went to Oklahoma. It went to all these other places. It went to this gun range. And they were able to just buy it. That information was not they didn't have to blackmail someone or steal it. They just paid for it on a information exchange.
Yeah.
Legally.
Yeah, totally. I think that's the biggest problem, is the sale of all this data that's being collected from not even just Bitcoiners, but just developers in general, and they're selling it.
That's why I'm so afraid of a lot of the KYC stuff. I mean, that's why Bitcoiners are afraid of KYC stuff, or encourage people to not use KYC. So you're basically logging with, registering with the government effectively, because these KYC systems, they have to report at the government's request who all of their users are, what all their transaction history is. And so you're effectively you register a gun. You're registering your Bitcoiner status with the government.
Yeah.
I kind of remember a couple years back that this question kind of came up then, or there was somebody that was detailing. Maybe it was just Austin talking to me, detailing like why GitHub is kind of vulnerable as like your one place for all this stuff, and if there are alternatives, the challenges to like creating an alternative.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah. That gets discussed pretty often. That was discussed quite a bit around the time that Nostr came out, because one of the first things Jack Dorsey requested was
something else. Yeah. Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
Did anybody say that in the comments?
The top comment was from Elvis Mercury. Says, I have no expertise to offer, but I have been super curious for years about how the OPSEC or lack of it play out among core devs once various important people groups have billions and then trillions at stake are no longer okay with riding it on the whims of some small collection of neckbeards. So far as I could tell, almost no discussion or concrete action has occurred to preempt the issue aside from the attrition of some good people.
Yeah. Well said, Elvis Mercury.
I referred optimism to a person that I did a podcast interview with years ago. His name is Chris. He's based in Australia. He's this great open source dev who runs a Git host, who is on Nostr, I believe and has written a Git tool that allows you to push Git commits over Tor, who I thought would be perfect for maybe proposing a more anonymous Git host to, and hope he reached out to him. But
yeah, so nobody claimed that Jack Dorsey bounty?
I don't think they've claimed it yet, but people are definitely working on it.
Yeah.
I've seen some pretty impressive projects, and they've gotten pretty far, but I don't think they're like there yet, where Jack Dorsey is like, have a crumb.
Cool. Well,
he's sharing pretty much. He's sharing a lot of his pie. You think?
I don't know. When your pie is like the size of Mount Everest,
it's easy to just.
Well, I don't know if it's easy. It's probably. $1 million is still $1 million because he could he could buy people's lives with $1 million.
Whoa.
Which he, but.
Whoa.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. What would you recommend? What would you recommend, Keyan, to developers that are getting into Bitcoin or looking to get into Bitcoin? Like, how would you
developers into Bitcoin?
Like, how would you recommend
Don't
them?
do it.
Oh, really?
No, I mean, not really, but I would say it's one of the most hostile environments to be a developer in. Most other like technical ecosystems, the political hierarchy is composed mostly of other builders. In Bitcoin, it's composed of financial people and social media influencers. So you're a second-class citizen and you're doing all the work. And if you're a Bitcoin developer, and you're constantly the enemy. So I would say it's like I would only do it really if you're like an extra masochist. Because being a builder already, you have to being a founder already, you have to be a masochist. But being a Bitcoin developer is like on like double hard mode in terms of the emotional effort. How
would you recommend they keep their privacy though? That's what I was.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had my own shit going on. I would recommend don't. Anyone who comes to work for Stacker.News, I recommend that they don't ever share their name. So we have EK, that's their pseudonym. Lately, Sox has been working with us, and that's their pseudonym. So definitely don't use your real name. And, rotate your pseudonym if you can. Sometimes it's hard because you've built up reputation on it, but if you haven't had a breach with your real name associated with your pseudonym, that can be okay. Definitely never use your real IP address if you can. There are lots of great guides. Lop has written a lot about this.